It took about a year for the ASUS ExpertWiFi EBR63 to enter the market after its announcement, so I could finally buy one. But I'm still trying to figure out why this device even exists at all. There is another member of the ExpertWiFi series which is an access point, and it does have some useful functions for small businesses, such as a captive portal, but so does the EBR63, which has pretty much the same set of features plus the extra ports and the routing aspect. So ASUS invented a wireless router. No, I'm joking, the EBR63 does look very nice and it does have some of the more popular Wi-Fi 6 features, such as the support for OFDMA, MU-MIMO and even beamforming. None of the ports are multi-gigabit, which is a bit of a bummer, and after taking a quick look over the graphical interface, it seems to be completely redesigned. ASUS now going for a modern and minimalist look, but the settings seem to be generally the same as on the RT series, well, minus the gaming features, I suppose. I noticed that they renamed the Guest Network Pro as Self-Defined Network, but the VLAN support is there as well as the AI protection. But it seems that the NAS suitable link aggregation is gone. Hardware-wise, it's very close to the second version of the RT-AX58U and the TUF AX3000, while the software layout is redesigned to be more simple to operate by non-tech-savvy small business owners. They really do seem to be the targeted audience. Anyway, let's see what we're dealing with. The ExpertWiFi EBR63 was designed to look good on a shelf, and it definitely does, but there are a few shortcomings which we do need to address. The antennas are not removable, which I suppose it is expected at this price point, but what really concerned me was the flimsy stand. The device can sit horizontally, it can be mounted on the wall using the dedicated holes, and it's also possible to keep it vertically as long as you rely on the built-in stand. If you intend to use it that way, it's best to set it up and leave the router there, otherwise there is a very high chance that the stand may break. And I have a feeling that the warranty claim will not go in the user's favor. I suggest to mount it on a wall and you can still have that nice look with all the antennas pointing upwards. On the front there is an LED array and a slight bump in the plastic case for the ExpertWiFi logo. Now let's talk about the ports and the connectors. There is a WPS and reset button on the left next to the power button and the power connector. A bit to the right we get two USB ports, one 3.2 Gen 1 and the other USB 2.0. And then we get the WAN port and the first LAN, which is strangely separated from the other three LAN ports. Perhaps they used a different switch chip between the two groups. But as I mentioned before, all ports are gigabit only. Now let's talk about the heat management. ASUS did cover the entire bottom panel with holes, but the case is very slim, so is it enough? I checked it out using a thermal camera, and as you can see there are definitely some warm spots, but I doubt it will lead to any thermal throttling right now or in the near future. I did open the ASUS ExpertWiFi EBR63 in a separate video. It was a fairly simple process. I had to remove the two silicone feet and take out the screws underneath them. There is of course one that's covered by a warranty seal, so be careful with that if you're outside the US. Then a basic prying tool should be enough to detach the top side and gain access to the PCB. I won't go much more in detail, so these are the main components. Pause at any time to have a better look. Also, this is a comparison table with other wireless routers. Now that we have arrived at the test section, let's first start with the single client throughput analysis on the 5 GHz radio band. I did use 3 different client devices, one Wi-Fi 6 and the other 2 Wi-Fi 5. And because we are limited by the gigabit ports, we see that the Wi-Fi 6 client device went very close to it as long as it was fairly closer to the router. Then again, even at 45 feet it was still fine, but going farther than that will have an impact on the throughput if there is no line of sight. And I certainly didn't have it, considering that the signal attenuation was minus 86 dB. That's a lot of interference. Things were relatively the same downstream as well, with the Wi-Fi 6 client performing very well, while the Wi-Fi 5 ones struggled a bit more, especially the Pixel 2 XL. If you're wondering why I added the signal attenuation graphics, well, it's to help you reproduce these results in your own home. Matching the distance will do nothing if the signal attenuation is not similar, which is why you should be very wary of publications that don't disclose these numbers or don't bother to check them at all. Moving on, I have included some comparison graphics with other wireless routers that I tested so far, And, as expected, it didn't shine when the channel bandwidth was set to 160 MHz, but it did relatively well when set to 80 MHz. I also had to include a longer-term throughput graph and a brief comparison to what you can expect from a device such as the RTX86U Pro. I also ran some tests using the 2.4 GHz radio band, and as long as you use the Wi-Fi 6 client and the 40 MHz channel bandwidth, the throughput is good. The Wi-Fi 5 clients were a bit less impressive. When compared to other wireless routers that I tested until now, the ExpertWiFi EBR63 is about average. Now let's see how well the router handles multiple client devices running various types of simulated traffic. I use the same NetHydra tools developed by Mr. Jim Salter, which you can get for yourself from GitHub, and I started with a 1080p streaming traffic ran on 5 client devices. I have included their specifications as well as the measured signal attenuation. We want the latency to be as small as possible, preferably underneath 50 milliseconds. And only one client got close to this number for 75% of the time, the rest slowly rising towards 90 milliseconds. The least impressive client was the MacBook, but the rest did manage to be somewhat decent. Moving on to the 4K streaming traffic, it's interesting to see that the client that did poorly in the last test did far better here, being the only one beneath 100 milliseconds for 75% of the time. The rest went above that value, and this shows that it's better to limit the number of clients in case you want to run similar types of applications. Moving forward, I added intense browsing next to the 1080p streaming, and we can see the latency for the latter here. 3 client devices did hover around the 70 milliseconds mark and below for 75% of the time. And they also managed to remain beneath 100 milliseconds for almost the entire duration of the test. The intense browsing graphic shows that 3 clients stayed below 400 milliseconds, which is good, while 2 went a bit above 1 second, which is still fine. It's the 1.5 seconds mark which usually annoys people and they need to reload the page. Next, I ran a similar type of test, but instead of 1080p, I simulated 4K streaming traffic on all 5 client devices. Okay, pretty much all client devices went above 100 milliseconds and some even reached 200 milliseconds for at least 5% of the time. That's far from ideal and it's going to cause problems when streaming movies. The intense browsing graph shows decent results, so at least this ran better. Let's make things a bit more interesting and download a 10 MB file on 2 clients, while 2 were left to deal with the intense browsing and 1 for the 4K streaming simulation. I honestly expected worse, but the 2 downloaded clients stayed below 600 milliseconds for at least 95% of the time. Is it far from ideal? Yes, but it's a better performance than what I saw on other wireless routers. The 4K streaming latency quickly rose above 200 milliseconds, which is not good, but the 2 intense browsing clients did well, I suppose. The total throughput for the downloaded clients was 461.5 megabits per second. Next, I limited the downloading traffic to 1 client only, leaving 2 for the 4K streaming and 2 for the intense browsing. The downloading client latency got better, although 200 milliseconds and above is not that great, while the 2 4K streaming clients stayed very near 150 milliseconds for almost the entire duration of the test. Still not good, but getting better. One intense browsing client managed to go above 1.5 seconds for 5% of the time, which is not a very good latency. Let's move on and limit the number of clients to 3, 1 for the downloaded traffic, 1 for the 4K streaming, and 1 for the intense browsing. Looking at the graphic, all I can say is that none of the clients did good at all. So let's limit things more by downloading a 1 MB file this time and replacing the 4K streaming client with voice over IP. The intense browsing client did go near the max limit, but still stayed below it, so all is fine. Lastly, I decided to run the downloaded traffic on all 5 client devices, and this is the result you can expect. I also wanted to test how quick the switch between 2 links happens in dual WAN, as well as the LACP link aggregation by relying on a TrueNAS I recently built. But I realized that ASUS has removed the ability to bond a couple of links for NAS applications. Dual WAN was still available, so let's go with that. I set it up, which is a very simple process that involves choosing the ports, and then I used 2 separate connections to check for the failover switching time. I disconnected the main line, and as you can see, it took very little time to get the second link active. I then reconnected it, waited a few seconds, and then disconnected the currently active link, which showed similar results as the first time. I use the same smart relay as before to check the power consumption of the EBR63, and from the dedicated app we can see how much power it draws. Now let's have a look at the software. ASUS has finally made the graphical interface more modern, but from what I heard it's going to be exclusive to the ExpertWiFi line, at least for now. We do get the menu on the left, and the main section is the dashboard, which shows various status info. AI Mesh is still supported, and so is the Guest Network Pro, although it's now called the Self-Defined Network. I suppose it's more suitable considering that it should be a bit beyond just a guest network. Then again, I expected more from the captive portal, especially in terms of authentication, but it's still bare bones in comparison to other solutions on the market. The support for VPNs is here as well, including the VPN Fusion, and so is the AI protection. This one has also been redesigned, but I found the layout a bit more messy than on the RT series. The live traffic monitor looks very nice, far better than before, but let's now visit the settings. The wireless section is the same as on the other ASUS routers I have tested so far, which means that it goes very in depth, the same for WAN and LAN, the latter including support for VLANs. Don't expect professional level VLAN, it's a very basic system which works but not very customizable. Merlin does a far better job at it. Speaking of which, is this router supported by Merlin? Not yet, no, but it will be probably added later since the device is very close to an RTX 58U. The web-based interface got a makeover, but is the app the same as on the RT series? No, it's actually an entirely different app called ASUS ExpertWiFi. The layout is different, although you get pretty much the same settings and status info as on the ASUS WRT app. But instead of black, we get white. The devices section will let you see the clients, and from here you can set up the QoS as well as limit the bandwidth, but I noticed a safe browsing section that I did not see before. Here it's possible to block malicious content automatically, as well as ads and adult content. A sort of fusion between AI protection and parental controls, and it makes sense. There is a dashboard section which is identical to what we get on the browser utility, while the SDN is similar to the Guest Network Pro. The rest of the settings can be found under Settings, and of course they're basic ones, because if you want to go in depth, then the web-based interface is pretty much mandatory. I asked in the intro if this device should exist at all, and the answer is that it kind of does have a place in the market. Well, until you realize that it seems to be a reskinned version of the RTX 58U. Then again, I won't deny that the software layout is much better and the device itself looks very nice on the desk. ASUS will probably lean more towards catering to the small business needs, and the ExpertWiFi line will grow separately from the RT, the TUF and the ROG series. But right now, ASUS seems to be a bit shy at trying anything too radical. Okay, that's about all for now. Subscribe if you want to see more of this type of videos. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.